The Kitherian fleet emerged from hyperspace like predators scenting blood. 300 vessels strong. Their crystalline hulls gleamed with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of conquest and dominance across a dozen star systems. Admiral Vexither stood on the command deck of the flagship Bone Render, his forearms clasped behind his carapace as he surveyed the tactical display. Sensors confirm. Admiral, reported navigation specialist Quindle, her voice carrying the ceremonial clicks that preceded momentous announcements. The third planet shows no energy signatures, no orbital defenses, no communications traffic. The indigenous species appears to have achieved extinction approximately 2 solar cycles ago. Vexither's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The Terran homeworld Earth, they had called it, hung before them like a blue-green jewel, its surface mottled with the brown scars of ecological collapse. Their long-range scouts had reported correctly. Humanity had finally poisoned itself into oblivion, leaving behind a treasure trove of rare minerals and a perfectly positioned staging ground for the next phase of Kitherian expansion. Initiate deep scans, Vexither commanded. I want mineral composition maps, atmospheric analysis, and structural integrity reports on their remaining cities. The High Conclave expects a full resource assessment within 6 rotations. The bridge hummed with activity as specialized vessels broke formation, their scanning arrays extending like metallic flowers seeking sunlight. The Kitherians had perfected the art of planetary scavenging over centuries of expansion. They would strip Earth of everything valuable, from the rare Earth elements in its crust to the orbital infrastructure humanity had abandoned, then move on to the next dead civilization. Captain Mergith, Vexither's second in command, approached with fluid steps that barely disturbed the bioorganic flooring. Admiral, should we deploy the harvester swarms to the urban centers? The scans show significant metallic concentrations. Patience, Mergith. First, we conduct thorough reconnaissance. These humans were unpredictable in their final years. Their desperation made them dangerous. Vexither's primary eyes focused on the planet below, while his secondary pair monitored the fleet formations. Begin with the smaller settlements. Test the waters before we commit to full extraction. 3 scout vessels detached from the main formation, their sleek forms designed for atmospheric entry and surface reconnaissance. Each carried a complement of 50 Kitherian warriors and enough firepower to level a city block. They were insurance against any automated defenses humanity might have left behind. As the scouts descended through Earth's atmosphere, Vexither allowed himself a moment of philosophical reflection. The Kitherians had encountered dozens of dead worlds in their expansion across the galaxy, species that had burned to bright, to fast, consuming their resources and poisoning their cradles until only silence remained. It was the natural order. The strong inherited the ashes of the weak. Admiral, Communications Officer Zephlin called out, her voice tight with confusion. I'm detecting unusual subsurface readings from the continental land masses. The density patterns don't match standard geological formations. Define unusual. Vexither replied, his attention sharpening. It's almost as if there are vast hollow spaces beneath the surface, interconnected caverns or tunnels. But the scale is impossible. These formations would span entire continents. Vexither's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Perhaps the humans had tried to survive underground before their final collapse. Subterranean cities were not uncommon among species facing extinction. It would explain the lack of surface activity while potentially hiding valuable technology. Caches, continue the scans, and prepare additional scout teams. If there are underground facilities, we'll need ground forces to secure them. He paused, something nagging at his tactical instincts. Also, maintain full defensive formations. Dead worlds sometimes harbor unpleasant surprises. The first scout ship broke through the cloud layer over what the humans had called North America, its sensors painting detailed pictures of empty cities and silent factories. Everything appeared as expected, the hollow remnants of a civilization that had finally learned the price of unchecked growth. But in the deep places beneath the earth, something stirred. Scout leader Kexvar guided his vessel toward the ruins of what human records identified as Denver. The city sprawled across the landscape like a metallic cancer, its towering structures dark and lifeless against the afternoon sky. Standard atmospheric readings showed breathable air with elevated toxin levels, perfect conditions for Kitherian physiology. Deploy reconnaissance drones. Kexvar ordered his crew. Standard formation. Scan for resource caches and technological remnants. Watch for automated defenses. A dozen biomechanical drones launched from the scout ship's belly, their wings catching thermals as they spread across the urban landscape. Each drone carried sophisticated sensors capable of detecting everything from rare metals to residual energy signatures. They painted the dead city in overlapping fields of analysis, transmitting data back to the hovering scout ship. HFY called his sensor specialist, voice uncertain. "I'm reading something strange from the downtown district. There's a massive energy signature approximately 200 meters below the surface. It's huge, define huge, 15 kilometers across, maybe more. The readings are unlike anything in our xenoarchaeology databases. The power output is minimal, but consistent, like something vast is sleeping." HFY felt his secondary hearts accelerate. His species had learned caution through centuries of expansion. Sleeping giants had a tendency to wake up at the worst possible moments. "Can you identify the energy type?" "Negative. It's not fusion, not a time matter, not any known plasma configuration. It's something else entirely." And HFY, "It's getting stronger." Below them, the city of Denver began to change. It started subtly, a tremor that ran through the abandoned streets, barely registering on seismic sensors. Then the tremor became a rhythm, steady and purposeful, like a massive heartbeat echoing from the depths. Windows that had been dark for 2 years suddenly flickered with pale blue light. "Sir," the sensor specialist's voice cracked with alarm. "Energy readings are spiking across the entire urban area. I'm detecting massive power redistribution through the city's infrastructure. It's like the entire metroplex is coming online." HFY's combat instinct screamed warnings. He'd seen too many dead worlds that weren't quite as dead as they appeared. "All units, pull back to safe distance. Transmit priority alert to the fleet. We may have." The street beneath them erupted. What emerged wasn't mechanical in any conventional sense. It was organic architecture made manifest, a towering spire of living metal and pulsing conduits that stretched toward the sky like a reaching finger. The spire's surface rippled with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly, and its apex began to glow with increasing intensity. "Evasive maneuvers," HFY shouted as his pilot threw the scout ship into a desperate spiral. But they were too close, too committed to their reconnaissance pattern. The spire fired. The beam that lanced upward wasn't coherent energy in any form the Cytherians recognized. It was something that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, tearing through space-time itself to reach its target. The scout ship's shields rated to withstand capital ship weapons simply ceased to exist. The hull followed a microsecond later. HFY had just enough time to realize that his species had made a terrible mistake before his consciousness scattered across 7 dimensions. Aboard the Bone Render, Admiral Vexther watched the tactical display with growing alarm as 3 red icons of scout ships winked out of existence. Within the span of 30 seconds, no debris signatures, no distress calls. They were simply gone. "Report," he barked. "Unknown energy discharges from the planetary surface." Navigation Specialist Quindle replied, her voice steady despite the circumstances. 3 separate locations, fired simultaneously. "The weapons used are beyond our technological understanding, sir. The planet is not dead. Something down there just announced its presence." Before Vexther could respond, his communications array came alive with an incoming transmission. The signal was broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously in perfect Cytherian standard. With flawless pronunciation, "Attention Cytherian Fleet. This is Earth Defense Command speaking on behalf of the Human Species Continuity Project. You are trespassing in protected space. You have 30 minutes to withdraw beyond the heliopause or face immediate defensive action. This is your only warning." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Captain Mergith was the first to speak. "Admiral, our intelligence reports were categorical. The humans achieved extinction 2 solar cycles ago. How is this possible?" Vexther stared at the blue-green world that had just casually destroyed 3 of his vessels and delivered an ultimatum in his own language. His tactical computer was already analyzing the energy discharges, and the preliminary results were disturbing. The weapons that had killed his scouts operated on principles that violated several fundamental laws of physics. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies." "Channel open, Admiral. Earth Defense Command. This is Admiral Vexther of the Cytherian Expansion Fleet. We detected no life signs from your world. Our scans showed a dead civilization. How do you explain this discrepancy?" The response came immediately, as if the humans had been expecting the question. Admiral Vexither, we explained it very simply. You were not invited to scan our world. What you detected was what we wanted you to detect. What you now face is what we choose to reveal. You have 28 minutes to withdraw. We suggest you use them wisely. Admiral Vexither felt the familiar weight of command settling on his shoulders like a predator's claws. In 3 centuries of conquest, the Cytherians had never encountered a species that could mask its entire planetary presence, while simultaneously demonstrating weapons technology that defied known physics. His tactical instincts warred with his scientific curiosity, and both were being overruled by the cold mathematics of political necessity. Admiral, Captain Mergeth approached with careful steps. The High Conclave's directives were explicit. Earth's resources are critical to the next phase of expansion. The rare earth deposits alone could fuel our industrial complex for a generation. I'm aware of our orders, Captain. Vexither's mandibles clicked with irritation. I'm also aware that those orders were based on intelligence that appears to have been catastrophically incorrect. The bridge's primary display showed a real-time analysis of the energy discharges that had vaporized his scout ships. The weapons had fired from concealed positions across 3 different continents, simultaneously suggesting either a distributed defense network or multiple independent installations. Either possibility implied a level of planetary organization that contradicted every piece of intelligence the Cytherians possessed. Sir, communications officer Zeppelin called out. I'm detecting massive subsurface activity across all continental land masses. Whatever the humans built down there, it's enormous. The energy signatures are. They're unlike anything in our databases. Vexither studied the sensor readings with growing unease. The underground networks appeared to span continents, connecting population centers through vast tunnels that honeycombed the planet's crust. It was planetary engineering on a scale that suggested either incredible desperation or incredible foresight. Open a channel to Earth Defense Command, he ordered. Channel open, Admiral. Human representatives, I am prepared to negotiate. The Cytherian expansion fleet seeks only to catalog and preserve the technological achievements of extinct civilizations. Perhaps we can reach an accommodation. The response came in the same calm, measured tone as before. Admiral Vexither, there is nothing to negotiate. You are claim jumpers who prey on dead worlds because you lack the courage to face living ones. You will withdraw, or you will be destroyed. You now have 22 minutes. The casual dismissal stung more than any battle roar would have. Vexither had expected fear, desperation, perhaps offers of tribute or technological exchange. Instead, the humans spoke with the confidence of a species that had already calculated the odds and found their enemies wanting. Admiral, tactical. Officer Brendis interrupted. Long-range sensors are detecting additional activity in the outer system. There are structures on the asteroid belt that weren't there 6 hours ago, and sir, some of them are moving. The tactical display updated, showing dozens of contacts emerging from concealment throughout the solar system. Asteroid mining platforms that had masqueraded as dead rock were revealing weapon arrays. Derelict space stations were powering up. Fusion drives. Even the gas giant's moon showed signs of artificial activity. By the void, Mergeth whispered, they fortified the entire system. How long have they been preparing for this? Vexither's tactical computer provided an estimate that made his primary hearts skip beats based on the scale of construction. Evident in the sensor readings, the humans had been preparing for invasion for at least a decade. They had faked their own extinction while building the most comprehensive system defense network the Cytherians had ever encountered. Sir, Zeppelin called out with barely controlled panic. I'm receiving priority communications from the High Conclave. They're demanding status updates on resource extraction operations. The political trap closed around Vexither like crushing jaws. The High Conclave had committed significant resources to this operation based on his preliminary reports. To return empty-handed would mean disgrace, exile, possibly execution. To advance meant facing an enemy that had demonstrated technological superiority. At tactical preparation, Admiral Brendis reported, I'm detecting new energy signatures from the planetary surface. It appears the humans are powering up additional defensive installations. Whatever they're planning, it's big. On the main display, Earth began to change before their eyes. The brown scars that had marked ecological collapse were revealing themselves as camouflaged installations. Vast sections of apparent wasteland opened like flowers, revealing mirror-bright weapon arrays that tracked the Cytherian fleet with predatory precision. Communications to all ships, Vexithor ordered, his voice carrying the weight of irreversible decision. Battle stations, prepare for planetary assault. We commit to full offensive operations. Sir, Mergev protested, we don't understand their technology. We're fighting blind against unknown capabilities. The alternative is returning to the High Conclave empty-handed. Vexithor replied coldly, and I would rather die with honor than live with shame. Besides, they're still human. Whatever advantages they possess, they're still limited by biology and physics. We outnumber them 300 to 1. Admiral, the human voice crackled across communications. Your time has expired. We offered you the opportunity to withdraw. With dignity, you have chosen to proceed with hostile actions against Earth. So be it. Consider this your education in why humanity survived when so many others didn't. The first wave of attacks came from directions the Cytherians hadn't known existed. Weapons fired from concealed positions throughout the asteroid belt, their projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. The Cytherian formation scattered as kinetic impactors tore through space where the fleet had been. Moments before return fire, Vexithor commanded, all ships, full offensive barrage. Target the planetary installations. 300 Cytherian vessels opened fire simultaneously, their combined firepower capable of cracking a planet's crust. Plasma beams, antimatter missiles, and quantum disruptors lanced toward Earth in a display of devastating force that had conquered a dozen worlds. Every shot was intercepted. Defensive screens materialized around Earth like soap bubbles made of crystallized space-time, absorbing and redirecting the Cytherian barrage harmlessly into empty space. The humans had not only survived their apparent extinction, they had emerged with technology that made the galaxy's most successful predators look like primitives with stone axes. Impossible, Mergev breathed. No species develops defensive technology of this magnitude without extensive testing. They would have had to fight wars we never detected, unless... Vexithor realized with growing horror, they developed it specifically for us. The realization hit Admiral Vexithor like a physical blow. Humanity had been watching. For how long? He couldn't know. But every aspect of this defense suggested intimate knowledge of Cytherian tactics, technology, and psychology. The humans hadn't just survived their apparent extinction, they had used it as cover to prepare for war against an enemy they had studied in excruciating detail. New contacts, Tactical Officer Brendish shouted over the combat alarms. Multiple signatures emerging from the planetary surface. They're ships, but the design is completely unknown. On the main display, Earth's atmosphere began disgorging vessels that defied conventional understanding of spacecraft design. They weren't built, they were grown. Organic curves blended seamlessly with crystalline structures that pulsed with the same interdimensional energy the humans had used to vaporize the scout ships. Each vessel was unique, as if individually crafted for specific tactical roles. Count them, Vexithor ordered. Sir, I'm reading over 800 individual contacts, and more keep coming. The tactical balance shifted in real time as humanity revealed the true scope of their preparations. What had seemed like overwhelming Cytherian superiority became a numerical disadvantage against an enemy that had spent decades perfecting weapons specifically designed to kill his people. All ships, defensive formation Kethver, Vexithor commanded, concentrate firepower on the lead human vessels. We need to break their coordination before the first human ship fired. The weapon wasn't visible in conventional space. It existed as a probability wave that collapsed into devastating reality. Only when it reached its target, the Cytherian heavy cruiser Marrow Feast simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, not vaporized, but edited out of the universe as if it had never been built. Evasive maneuvers, Vexithor shouted as his fleet scattered like startled prey animals. Return fire, all weapons. The battle became a nightmare of impossible physics and calculated slaughter. Human ships phased in and out of normal space-time, striking from directions that didn't technically exist before vanishing into dimensional folds that bent light around them. Their weapons operated on principles that violated causality itself, effects that preceded causes, destructive forces that propagated backward through time to unmake their targets before they could be fired upon. Captain Mergev coordinated the fleet's response with desperate efficiency. But the Cytherians were fighting a war they had never trained for against technology they couldn't understand. Ships died in ways that defied explanation. The heavy cruiser bone splitter aged 1,000 years in 3 seconds, its hull crumbling to cosmic dust. The destroyer prey stalker was inverted through 11 dimensions, its crew experiencing existence from the perspective of their component atoms. Sir, Communications Officer Zeppelin called out through the chaos. Priority transmission from Earth Defense Command. On speakers, the human voice cut through the combat chatter. With clinical precision, Admiral Vexither, you are observing the practical application of technology developed during our extinction. We spent 2 years studying your people through deep space monitoring stations you never detected. We know your tactics, your psychology, your technological limitations. We built these weapons specifically to kill Cytherians. Another squadron of Vexither S ships died as human vessels emerged from concealment within the asteroid belt. The humans had been preparing for this battle for years, positioning assets throughout the solar system while maintaining the illusion of a dead world. Your people excel at predation. The voice continued as Cytherian vessels burned around them. You are efficient killers of the weak and unprepared, but you have never faced prey that learned to hunt back. Vexither watched his tactical display with growing despair, as red icons representing his ships winked out faster than his computers could track. The Cytherians were dying at a rate of 5-to-1, their technology and tactics useless against an enemy that had spent decades preparing for this specific encounter. Sir, Brandis reported with barely controlled panic. I'm detecting massive energy buildups from multiple points on the planetary surface. It appears they're preparing to deploy something large. Earth's surface began to glow, not with the heat of weapons charging, but with something far more ominous patterns of light that spoke of fundamental forces being gathered and focused. The humans weren't just defending their world. They were preparing to demonstrate why species learned to fear the dark between stars. All ships, Vexither commanded, his voice carrying the weight of desperate resolve. Implement protocol, Shendar. We're going to ram the planet, sir, Mergeth protested. That's a suicide maneuver. Even if we breach their defenses, the planet's destruction will deny them their victory, Vexither replied coldly. And Protocol Shendar will transmit our battle records to the High Conclave. They need to know what humanity has become. The surviving Cytherian vessels, barely 100 remained from the original 300, reformed into a wedge formation aimed directly at Earth's surface. Their fusion drives lit the void as they accelerated toward the planet in a desperate kamikaze run designed to turn victory into mutual annihilation. Admiral, the human voice spoke again, and this time there was something new in its tone, not mockery or clinical detachment, but genuine regret. You're about to discover why we went extinct the first time. We're very good at killing things. Admiral, even ourselves. The light building on Earth's surface reached critical intensity, and space itself began to warp. The space around Earth twisted into geometries that violated three-dimensional physics as humanity revealed the full extent of their technological evolution. What emerged from the planet's surface wasn't just advanced weaponry, it was applied xenocide, refined through decades of meticulous study and focused hatred. Admiral Vexither S. kamikaze charge met humanity's ultimate defensive response head-on. The warping of local spacetime created gravitational eddies that tore at the Cytherian formation. But his pilots held course with the desperate courage of cornered predators. If they were going to die, they would take Earth with them. Distance to planetary surface, 800,000 kilometers and closing, reported navigation specialist Quindle. Her voice steadied despite the spatial distortions that made conventional navigation nearly impossible. Sir, Tactical Officer Brenda screamed over the chaos. Multiple new contacts emerging from the planet. These aren't ships, they're something else entirely. What rose from Earth's atmosphere were structures that challenged the basic concepts of engineering and biology, massive organic constructs that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially elsewhere, connected to the planet by conduits of pure energy that pulsed with the rhythm of some vast planetary heartbeat. Weapons platforms, Vexither realized with growing horror. They've turned the entire planet into a weapon. The first platform fired, and a section of space simply stopped existing. The Cytherian heavy cruiser Sinew Render flew into the void and vanished completely, not destroyed, not dispersed, but removed from reality itself. 20,000 crew members erased from the universe without even debris to mark their passing. Maintain formation, Vexither commanded as his fleet continued its desperate charge. All weapons, continuous fire. Concentrate on the platforms. The Cytherian response was magnificent in its futility. Antimatter missiles, plasma cannons, and quantum disruptors lashed out at the human installations with enough firepower to sterilize continents. Every shot was absorbed, redirected, or simply ignored by defensive systems that operated on principles beyond Cytherian understanding. The second platform activated, and gravity began to betray the laws of physics. Cytherian vessels found themselves pulled in multiple directions, simultaneously as local space folded into complex knots. Ships were compressed into points of infinite density, while others were stretched across light years of twisted space-time. Captain Mergith, commanding the secondary formation, watched in horror as his flagship's hull began to age rapidly, under the influence of temporal distortion fields. All vessels, emergency dimensional shielding, the humans are weaponizing time itself. But the Cytherians pressed on, driven by the desperate mathematics of mutual destruction. They had lost over 2/3 of their fleet, but the remaining ships carried enough destructive power to crack Earth's crust and trigger a cascading ecological collapse. If they could breach the planetary defenses, they could still claim victory through annihilation. The third platform revealed why humanity had called their species extinct. It fired not energy or matter, but pure entropy, the fundamental force of dissolution that turned order into chaos. Cytherian vessels touched by the entropic beam simply came apart at the molecular level, their organized structures dissolving into component atoms that dispersed into the void like cosmic dust. Sir, Quindle reported with the calm of someone who had already accepted death. We've lost 60% of the remaining fleet. Estimated time to planetary impact, 14 minutes. Human commanders. Vexither broadcast on all frequencies. You cannot stop us all. Some of our ships will reach your surface. Your planet will die with us. The response came not from Earth, Defense Command, but from the platforms themselves, a chorus of voices speaking in perfect unison, as if the planet itself had learned to talk. Admiral Vexither, you misunderstand our nature. We didn't fake our extinction to hide from you. We faked our extinction to become something that could kill you efficiently. What you call Earth is no longer just a planet, it's a weapon system, with continents for components and an ocean of trained killers for operators. The fourth platform came online, and with it came humanity's masterpiece of applied genocide, the Cytherian themselves. Rising from concealed positions throughout the solar system came ships of unmistakably Cytherian design, but wrong and subtle, ways that spoke of careful reverse engineering and deliberate improvement. They were vessels built by humans who had studied Cytherian technology for years, perfecting it, enhancing it, turning it into something optimized for killing its creators. Impossible. Mergith breathed as the human-built Cytherian ships opened fire with weapons that were familiar, yet devastatingly more effective than their originals. We studied your dead, the planetary voice explained as human-built Cytherian. Vessels tore through the surviving fleet with ruthless precision. Every battlefield you abandoned gave us technology to reverse engineer and improve. We learned to build your ships better than you do, Admiral. We learned to be you. But without your limitations, the battle became a slaughter as humanity demonstrated the fundamental difference between conquest and survival. The Cytherians had spent centuries perfecting the art of overwhelming weaker civilizations. Humanity had spent decades perfecting the art of killing Cytherians specifically. Distance to planetary surface, 200,000 kilometers. Quindle reported as the fleet's numbers dwindled to a mere 30 vessels. Sir, Brendan's called out with desperate hope. If we can punch through their final defensive perimeter, we can still trigger a planetary bombardment. The blast will, the fifth platform activated, and the remaining Cytherian ships found themselves facing mirror images of themselves. Not human-built copies, but actual Cytherian vessels pulled from parallel dimensions where this battle had already been fought and lost. Humanity had learned to reach across reality itself, drawing upon infinite variations of this encounter to ensure their victory in every possible timeline. You wanted to know how we survived extinction, the planetary voice continued as Admiral. Vexither watched his final ships die around him. We didn't survive it, Admiral. We embraced it. We became extinct to everything except the will to make you extinct in return. The bone render shuddered as weapons fired from a dozen directions converged on the flagship. Vexither felt the deck plates buckling beneath his feet as his ship's shields failed, and hull breaches began venting atmosphere into the void. Sir, Mergith said quietly, it's over. Where the last ship, Vexither looked at his bridge crew oil officers who had followed him across the galaxy in service of Cytherian expansion. They deserve better than to die in this trap that masqueraded as a battle. Open the channel to Earth Defense Command, he ordered. Channel open, Admiral, I surrender. The words hung in the vacuum of space like an epitaph for an entire fleet. Admiral Vexither stood on the bridge of the dying bone render, surrounded by the wreckage of 3 centuries of Kitherian naval supremacy, and waited for humanity's response to his surrender. It came not as words, but as action. The human weapons platforms powered down their reality-warping systems, and the mirror dimension Kitherian vessels faded back into whatever parallel timelines had spawned them. The entropic beams ceased their molecular dissolution, and the gravitational anomalies that had been tearing ships apart collapsed back into normal space-time. Admiral Vexither, the planetary voice spoke with clinical precision, your surrender is acknowledged. However, you and your surviving crew are about to participate in a demonstration of human nature that we believe will be educational. What demonstration? Vexither asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. The same demonstration we gave ourselves when we chose extinction over subjugation. You see, Admiral, humanity doesn't just survive. We adapt, and we've adapted to become something that no longer fits into the galaxy's existing power structures. The space around the bone render began to shimmer as a massive human vessel materialized, not emerging from concealment or dimensional phasing, but literally assembling itself from components that hadn't existed moments before. The ship was beautiful in the way that predators were beautiful, perfectly designed for its function, which appeared to be the systematic dismantling of everything the Kitherians represented. Prepare for boarding, the voice continued. You're going to witness something that no Kitherian has ever seen before, a human negotiation, where humans hold all the advantages. The boarding was unlike anything in Vexither's experience. Instead of weapons and combat armor, the humans arrived wearing simple environmental suits and carrying what appeared to be medical equipment. They moved through the dying Kitherian vessel with the calm efficiency of surgeons, tending to wounded crew members and stabilizing critical systems. I don't understand, Captain Murgith whispered as human medics worked to seal a hull breach that had been venting his bridge crew into space. Why are they helping us? The answer came from the human leading the boarding party, a tall, pale creature whose eyes held depths that spoke of surviving things that should have killed her. Because, she said in perfect Kitherian, we're not like you. We don't destroy for the joy of destruction. We destroy because it's necessary. She approached Admiral Vexither with the casual confidence of someone who had already won so completely that magnanimity was possible. I'm Commander Elena Vasquez, Earth Defense Command. Admiral, you and your people are going to return to the Kitherian High Conclave with a message. What message? Vexither asked. Many, Vexither replied, but also curiosity. Your people have shown us that survival is more complex than we understood, that extinction can be a choice rather than a failure, that the galaxy is larger and more dangerous than we ever imagined, and more full of opportunities. Vasquez added, Admiral, the Kitherians were never our enemies. You were our graduation exam. The real challenges are still out there, waiting for us to find them. She gestured toward the stars beyond the viewport, where long-range sensors had detected signals from civilizations that made humanity's resurrection look like a simple magic trick. Species that had learned to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Entities that fed on the quantum foam underlying reality itself. Civilizations that had achieved true immortality and were now spreading through the galaxy like a slow-motion infection. We chose extinction once to avoid being conquered, Vasquez continued, but we chose resurrection to avoid being irrelevant. The galaxy is entering a new phase of evolution, Admiral. Species that can't adapt to cooperative survival aren't going to survive at all. As the joint fleets disappeared into hyperspace, Vexither realized that humanity's victory at Earth had been more than just a demonstration of superior firepower. It had been an invitation to join something larger than conquest, something that might actually be worthy of the price both species had paid to achieve it. The dead planet had indeed sent back a warning shot, but the warning hadn't been a threat, it had been an opportunity. Humanity had chosen extinction to avoid slavery, then chosen resurrection to avoid irrelevance. Now they were offering the galaxy a chance to choose evolution over extinction. The stars had never looked so full of possibility. Epilogue from the personal journal of Admiral Vexither, former commander of the Kitherian Expansion Fleet, current coordinator of the Human Kitherian Deep Space Exploration Initiative. It has been 5 years since the Battle of Earth, and I find myself reflecting on the nature of defeat and victory. We Cytherians believed that strength meant the ability to take what we wanted, from those too weak to resist. Humanity taught us that true strength means the ability to become what survival requires. They didn't just fake their extinction, they weaponized it. They turned death itself into a strategic advantage, then used that advantage to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. It was the most human thing imaginable, faced with impossible odds. They chose to change the rules of the game. Today, our joint fleets explore regions of space that neither species could have reached alone. We have encountered wonders and horrors that dwarf anything in our previous experience. And through it all, humanity continues to demonstrate that survival is not about being the strongest predator. It's about being the most adaptable. The galaxy is vast, and we are still learning what it means to exist within it. But I no longer fear extinction. I've seen what lies on the other side of death, and it is not in it is transformation. The dead planet taught us that the grave is not a destination, it's a doorway, and humanity holds the key. That humanity is no longer available for conquest. We've moved beyond that stage of our development. She gestured toward the viewport, where Earth hung like a blue-green jewel surrounded by the debris of the Cytherian fleet. What you see isn't just planetary defense, Admiral. It's a graduation ceremony. We've completed our evolution from prey species to apex predator. You speak of evolution. Vexither replied, but what I witnessed was genocide. You didn't just defeat us, you erased us from existence. Yes, Commander Vasquez agreed without apparent shame. We did, and we'll do it again to any species that threatens Earth. But Admiral, here's what makes us different from you. We're offering you a choice. The human commander activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the Cytherian Empire. Dozens of star systems connected by trade routes and military supply lines, all dependent on the constant flow of resources stripped from conquered worlds. Your expansion has reached its natural limits, she explained. You've consumed the easy targets and now you're facing the hard choices that every successful predator species eventually confronts. You can continue your current path and face extinction as stronger civilizations unite against you, or you can accept a new role in a galaxy where humanity sets the rules. What role? Vexither asked, though he was beginning to understand the scope of humanity's plans. Clients, junior partners, supervised entities who earn the right to continued existence by serving purposes we define. The holographic display shifted to show potential futures Cytherian fleets, serving as auxiliaries to human expansion. Cytherian worlds producing goods for human markets. Cytherian technology being improved and directed by human oversight. You're offering us slavery. Merges snarled. We're offering you survival. Commander Vasquez corrected, the same choice we gave ourselves when we realized that extinction was preferable to living under someone else's rules. The difference is that we chose extinction and found a way to make it work for us. You can choose slavery and learn to make it work for you. Admiral Vexither felt the weight of civilizational decision pressing down on his shoulders. Everything the Cytherians had built over centuries of expansion was ending here, in this moment, aboard a dying flagship surrounded by an enemy that had learned to weaponize death itself. And if we refuse, he asked, then you return to Cytherian space and explain to your High Conclave that Earth is now a forbidden system protected by weapons that can reach anywhere in the galaxy. You explain that humanity has moved beyond planetary defense to active expansion, and that we're coming for every species that poses a potential threat to our continued existence. The holographic display showed the truth behind humanity's apparent resurrection. Fleets of ships like the one that had materialized around the Bone Render, weapons platforms that could be deployed to any star system, and technology that operated on principles the Cytherians were only beginning to comprehend. How long do we have to decide? Vexither asked. You don't, Commander Vasquez replied. The decision was made the moment you entered this system. You're going to return to the High Conclave and deliver our terms. The only choice you have is whether you do it as our messenger or as our example. The journey back to Cytherian space took 17 days aboard a human-provided vessel that was both a gift and a demonstration. The ship was built using hybrid technology Cytherian engineering principles, perfected by human innovation, and it was faster, more efficient, and more comfortable than anything in the Imperial fleet. Admiral Vexither spent those 17 days in what humans called debriefing sessions, but which felt more like philosophical dissection. Commander Vasquez and her team systematically dismantled every assumption the Cytherians had held about galactic power structures, technological development, and the nature of survival itself. Your people, Vasquez explained during one such session, made a fundamental error in understanding what extinction means. You thought it was an ending. For us, it was a beginning. She showed him records from humanity's final years: the environmental collapse, the resource wars, the desperate retreat into underground cities as the surface world died. But intertwined with the records of ecological disaster were files that told a different story. The Human Species Continuity Project, a coordinated effort to fake extinction while building the infrastructure for ultimate survival. We had two choices, Vasquez continued. We could die slowly as a failed civilization, or we could die quickly and completely, then come back as something else. We chose controlled extinction followed by directed evolution. The records showed the brutal logic behind humanity's resurrection. While the surface world burned, underground cities had become laboratories for developing technologies, specifically designed to counter every known threat in the galaxy. Humanity had studied every successful species, identified their strengths and weaknesses, and built weapon systems optimized for killing them. The Cytherians were our primary focus, Vasquez admitted. Your expansion pattern was predictable, your technology was well documented, and your psychology was simple. You were the perfect test case for our new approach to survival. Captain Mergith, who had been unusually quiet during the journey, finally spoke. You're telling us that our entire species was nothing more than a training exercise for you? Not entirely, Vasquez replied with what might have been sympathy. You were also a proof of concept. We needed to demonstrate that humanity could not only survive extinction, but use it as a strategic advantage. Your fleet provided the perfect opportunity. As they approached Cytherian space, Vexither found himself grappling with questions that had no comfortable answers. What did it mean to be a predator species when something had learned to hunt predators? What did conquest mean when the conquered could choose to become extinct rather than submit? The High Conclave will never accept your terms, he told Vasquez as they entered the outer regions of the Cytherian home system. Then they'll provide us with another demonstration of human problem-solving, she replied calmly. Admiral, your people have a choice to make. You could accept client status under human oversight, or you can continue your current path and face the consequences. But understand this, humanity is no longer asking for permission to exist. We're informing you of the new reality. Their arrival at Cyther Prime was a moment of profound humiliation for Vexither. The planet's orbital defenses tracked their approach, with weapons that now seemed primitive compared to what he had witnessed at Earth. The proud structures of the imperial capital looked small and vulnerable against the backdrop of space. That humanity had demonstrated they could warp at will. The High Conclave convened an emergency session to hear Vexither's report. The assembled leaders of Cytherian civilization, military commanders, industrial coordinators, and colonial administrators listened in stunned silence. As he described the destruction of the Earth expedition, impossible, declared High Commander Zefkarin, the military supreme of Cytherian space. No single species could develop such technology without our intelligence networks detecting it. They didn't develop it, Vexither replied warily. They became it. Humanity chose extinction and then chose to come back as something that could kill us efficiently. They spent 2 years studying us, preparing for us, building weapons specifically designed to counter our tactics and technology. And their terms? Asked Economic Coordinator Merthis. Vexither activated the holographic display that Commander Vasquez had provided. The terms were simple, comprehensive, and non-negotiable: cessation of all expansion activities, restructuring of the Cytherian economy under human oversight, integration of human technology and administrative systems, and acceptance of humanity as the dominant species in this region of the galaxy. Slavery, snarled High Commander Zefkarin. They're demanding our complete surrender. They're offering us survival, Vexither corrected. The alternative is extinction, and Admiral, after what I witnessed at Earth, I can assure you that they have the capability to make good on that threat. The debate that followed lasted for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The mathematics of power had shifted permanently. Humanity had demonstrated not just superior technology, but superior strategic thinking, superior long-term planning, and superior willingness to pay the ultimate price for survival. 6 months later, Admiral Vexither stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Earth Cyther Embassy Station. watching as the first joint human-Cytherian exploration fleets departed for regions of space that neither species had yet explored. The Cytherians had accepted client status, but they had also discovered that humanity's vision of galactic expansion was far grander than anything they had imagined. "Regrets, Admiral?" Commander Vasquez asked, joining him at the viewport.